Hey guys, and welcome back to my cooking channel. Today we're going to be cooking the best beef pie ever, and I'm not exaggerating, you wait till you taste it. But don't forget, as always, if you enjoy this cooking video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel so I can keep bringing you some really good home cooking tips, tricks and recipes. Back to today's pie. Now, it is a full pie. It's got a pastry bottom and a pastry top, so we can class this as an actual pie, unlike some of those intruders with no pastry bottom. The filling is just so beefy and mouth-watering and Moorish. This is going to be your go-to pie, and obviously it's super easy, as with most of my recipes. As always, the full list of ingredients and method will be in the caption or on my actual website, katiecooks.co.uk, but let me run through them quickly with you. So I'm using shin of beef there. I bought a couple of big steaks and diced them into lovely big chunks. That will cook a little bit quicker. We've got some olive oil, a mixture of plain flour, mustard powder, salt and pepper that I'm going to coat the beef in. Then we've got a diced onion and a couple of cloves of garlic crushed. And then we've got some freshly chopped rosemary, dried parsley and some oregano. We've got some good beef stock, some passata, and then, no, I'm not making my own pastry because who has time for that when you're making a full pie? So the bottom's going to be shortcrust and the top's going to be puff. And you'll need one beaten egg to glaze the pastry on top. If you don't have an egg, you can use milk. So the filling for this pie, because I just woke up one day and was like, I really want a beefy tomato pie filling, so that's what I've done. I obviously added some aromats to make it, so it's almost like a really lovely, almost Italian but not quite as intense, slow cooked beef ragu. It's just absolutely unctuous and gorgeous. Anyway, I digress. Let's get on with the cooking. So in there we've got our plain flour, mustard powder, salt and pepper. It's actually going to help thicken the gravy as well by coating the beef in this and cooking it off. So get that all mixed up. Make sure you're adding plenty of salt and pepper, because obviously that's also a seasoning for our steak. It's our first point of seasoning. And then we're going to put our, I keep calling it steak, so it's a shin joint that I've cut up myself. I like to do it like that, even though this beef's going to be all shredded by the time it's cooked. If you want to keep it chunky, you should cook it for a little bit less time. And I always like buying big chunks of slow cooking beef, whatever you want to use, shin or braised steak, because that way you can cut them into these, you take control of the chunks. When you buy them pre-cut in the supermarkets in particular, you end up with these tiny little bite-sized pieces. I mean, it's really not relevant to this recipe because we're going to cook it down so it's all shredded and lovely. But yeah, that's my first tip. If you're doing like a casserole or something, buy a big piece and you take charge of cutting it up. Anyway, pop it into the seasoned flour and get it all coated really, really well. As I said, this is going to act as a thickener for our sauce as well, so it comes in handy to make sure not only does it add flavour to the beef, it also thickens our gravy. So that's quite important if we want to make a really, really nice sauce. And out comes my trusty Tefal turbo cuisine. I forgot the name of it here. This isn't like an advert or anything, but I just love this because it's got so many little programs on it. You can brown stuff off in it, you can slow cook in it, you can pressure cook in it. So this dish in a slow cooker would take, I don't know, maybe like 4 to 5 hours. In this pressure cooker, it's going to take me, that part of the cooking is going to take me about an hour and maybe an hour and 15. So it's just fantastic. My slow cooker's kind of retired in the cupboard now. So yeah, this is my Tefal turbo cuisine. So what we're going to do is pop in our floured seasoned beef shin, diced beef shin, and we're going to get that lovely and browned off. Don't forget to put the oil in to heat up. If you don't have a pressure cooker or instant pot and you're using your slow cooker, I don't know if you can brown it off in your slow cooker or not. It depends what one. You might be doing it on the hob, getting it started on the hob. So just get yourself a deep saucepan, add your oil on a medium to high heat, and just do these same steps, and then obviously you'll transfer it to your oven proof dish or your slow cooker, however you're finishing cooking the beef off. The first error I did in this dish, actually the only error I did in this dish, is I probably should have cooked this beef off into batches, because obviously the heat in the pan remains higher, you get a little bit more colour. But not to worry, if you're doing this part, just do it in 2 batches. I'd probably do this in split it into 2. But we'll persevere and get through this, and I'll end up with a nice bit of colour on my beef eventually. Let's speed it up. So my beef is pretty well coloured now. I think I did pretty well considering I absolutely swamped the pan with beef. Got a few little crispy bits from the flour as well, so we're going to go in and continue cooking and add some more of our other ingredients. So we've gone in with the diced onion and the crushed garlic, and then we're going to go in with our aromats. So that was chopped rosemary, oregano and dried parsley. Give that all a stir, and we're just going to let that cook a little bit just to get the flavours of those dried herbs nice and aromatic, and just takes a couple of minutes. Once you start to smell a lovely flavour, keep an eye on the garlic, don't let it burn, but once you start to smell all those lovely aromas, then go in, add a little bit of water. That's just going to stop everything from sticking to the pan. And you can see here already like what that flour that coated the beef has done. It's almost like a slurry in there, but that's fantastic because that's the thickener to our gravy. So after letting that cook for a couple of minutes, you add your water, give it a good stir around, cook it for another couple of minutes, and then you can go in with your beef stock and your passata. Give it a lovely good stir around, make sure that everything's mixed together well. I'm sorry, but look at once I've mixed this in, you have a look at it, already looks so good. The colour's great, the thickness, although it's a little bit thin, it's just getting there already. It's just fantastic, apart from the meat being like super chewy. So I'm going to pop the lid on this. Obviously you transfer this to the oven or to your slow cooker. If you're cooking in the oven, you want it at 170, and again that will take about 4 hours. In your slow cooker, it will take around about 4 hours as well on high, maybe longer if you're going to put it on low. Or of course, if you're pressure cooking like me, an hour and 15 minutes, as you've just seen me set up, will do the trick. After that time, we're going to take that lid off, let the steam disappear, and then let's see what we've got here. Look at the colour of that sauce. I mean, it's got a little layer of fat on it. I quite like that in my dishes. There is ways that you can skim that off, you let it cool, or you can use a fat separator. It's no problem, but actually for me, because there's not too much, I actually really like it. I think it adds a lot of flavour to the gravy, but we'll see how we get on. Look how tender this meat is, just pushing that gently with a spoon and it's just breaking apart. So if you want bigger chunks, cook it for a little bit less time so that all the meat still holds together, but I actually want this shredded. And that sauce has got so much flavour in it, we just need to thicken it up a little bit. Where it's been cooking with a lid on, obviously none of the liquid can escape, so we're going to cook it now. I'm just showing off how tender that meat is again. It's just delicious. So we're going to cook it with the lid off and just let it thicken slightly. Again, if you're using a slow cooker or cooking in the oven, this would take a lot longer, but when you do want to thicken it up, you'd have to really carefully transfer it into like a saucepan. This is why this turbo cuisine is just brilliant. You don't have to do all that. Anyway, yeah, you'd have to transfer it, being careful with the hot liquid, transfer it to a saucepan and then let that reduce. So just try your best, either remove the meat from the pan, and if you want it shredded, obviously use fork, spoon, whatever, and just crush it until it's lovely and soft. You can do this in the sauce as well. I just didn't want to scratch the coating on the inside of the bowl, so with 2 forks. So yeah, I've taken it out to do it. At this point as well, you can discard, depending on how you like your meat, you can discard any of the larger fatty chunks, because you often find that slow cook, that's why it's cooked so well, slow cook cuts of beef do have a lot of fat in it, but that's why it's so good for slow cooking. But you can remove anything that you find unpalatable, let's just say that. I did pick a couple of bits out before I put this back in, but yeah, you can just want to shred it up, and it's just absolutely, you've just got to try not to eat it. Try not to eat it now, because you need that for the inside of your pie. Okay guys, don't eat it yet. Unlike me, you can hear me tasting a bit in the background, which was a little bit naughty, but that's the chef perks. So back into our sauce goes all that lovely shredded meat. It's just, I could have this in a bowl as it is now. Fresh cracker pepper over the top and a chunk of like crusty bread with butter. I could sit and eat it now. So yeah, we're going to just now try and reduce the sauce. So I'm going to do this again in my one pot. I'm going to put it on to browning, and then that's just going to thicken that gravy lovely. You will have to do this in a saucepan if you can't do it in your slow cooker, etc. I explained that earlier on, so I'm not going to bore you with that again. So I've been letting that reduce now for about 10 to 15 minutes. It shouldn't take long because of the flour that we added in at the start. It was coating the beef. So once you're happy with the consistency, and obviously it's completely up to you. We don't want it too loose because we do want it to cook don't do it too saucy because you want it to cook in the pastry really nice. But obviously you do want some gravy when you cut into that pie. So I'm just going to remove that now and put it back into the bowl where I was shredding the meat, save getting another dish dirty. And here's a top trick that I found out. I'd done this by default. I ran out of time to make this pie in one day with the natural light so that I could film it and stuff like that. So I had to leave it till the next day. So I put my filling, let it cool, and then put it in the fridge. And it just cooks so much better in the oven. So this is the next day where I'm actually assembling the pie. So that meat mixture was cooled, covered, left in the fridge overnight, and now I'm going to assemble my pie. My oven is preheating on 180, and I've put a baking tray in the bottom because that will heat up, and then when you put your pie dish down it will actually cook the pastry from underneath as well. It's another good tip for you. So the bottom of the pastry tin is going to be short crust pastry. So no point in putting puff pastry on the bottom because it's not going to rise anyway. So I'm just going to try our best to line that pastry tin with our short crust pastry. You have to snip a bit of the trimmings off around the side and then just do like a patchwork to let it, as you can see here, just patchwork to let the pastry come up around all the edges. Just make sure that you seal it well to make sure we don't have any leakages. Okay, now we're just going to trim that last bit off and we're going to add our filling to the pie. Now the reason why I think this worked out so well is because obviously that meat, now you should never put warm filling into a pie case because you start to melt the butter in the pastry and it's a disaster. So you should always cool your pie filling anyway, but it's extreme that I've put it in the fridge overnight, but it worked out really well. And if I can in future, I'm going to do this because that meat inside there is so cold. Obviously it's all fully cooked, but it's so cold as it's cooking, it gives the pastry time to get cooked and crisped and go golden in the oven without drying out the filling, making the filling overcooked or anything like that. So actually although you're cooking your pastry and making it golden and crisp, you're just warming that pie filling through, which means you can leave it in the oven for a little bit longer if you need to get that pastry golden. So it's just fantastic, and that is exactly what I will be doing in future. Right, we're going to top the top of the pie now with puff pastry. Of course you can put short crust pastry on top if you prefer short crust pastry, but we're going for a puff pastry today. We're going to trim the sides off. Again, we're going to make sure it's all completely sealed, and then with those off cuttings as well, you can just obviously you can put a pretty pattern on top. Use a rolling pin that makes it stick to the rim of the pie dish, and then obviously you can use a fork to just do a little amateur crimp around the side. Get really creative with your pie, or you can just keep it pretty simple. Pie is a pie at the end of the day. It just tastes fantastic whatever it looks like. Well, what do you know, I didn't use a fork to crimp the side of this. I actually used a spoon to do this, which just obviously, as I say, get creative with your pie, decorate it however you want, grab whatever you've got available close to you, which in my case was obviously a spoon and not a fork, and then just make sure that's nicely sealed all around the sides. Poke a couple of air holes in there so that the steam's able to escape through the pie lid, and then get your beaten egg or milk if you don't have an egg available or you don't want to waste an egg. It's not a waste to me because it adds extra colour and that lovely crisp texture as well. So anyway, baste the top of your pie with that, and then what we're going to do is, again, you've got to put a little bit of decoration on there if you want to, otherwise the pastry just goes in the bin and it's a bit wasteful. So I'm actually using my son's vegetable shape cutter outers that I use, so he eats his cucumber and stuff. I'm actually going to use them cute little things, hearts and stars, just to use up the pastry, cut some of them out, stick them on top, and then egg wash them again. And then once you're happy, pop it into your oven. It normally takes around about 50 minutes to an hour. Don't forget to have that baking tray in there. That's going to help cook the pastry underneath as well. So so you don't get a soggy bottom. And then once your pastry is golden, crisp and delicious, take it out of the oven and just admire your beautiful pie. Let it sit there before you cut into it. I found this, you tend to find the slicing a little bit easier. If you're anything like me, I really struggle getting things out of pie dishes, as you'll probably see at the end of this video. But look how beautiful that pie is. It's actually stunning. It's a lovely colour. I know that filling inside is going to be delicious, and the pastry is cooked really well. All that's left to do now is take out a big slice. So let's go. So I always go through like a million different utensils trying to get a pie out in one piece. Here I've chosen the metal spatula, which I realise is not flexible enough. So I then go on to get a silicone spatula, which I do have a little bit more luck in, but it still takes a little bit of easing out, but we get there eventually. Don't forget to comment if you struggle to get your pies out of the pie dish as well. But as I said, it doesn't matter the taste. Look at that filling. It's just gorgeous. It's exactly the right thickness. It's I've got to go and make this pie again now. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I even had any veg with this pie. I just ate it as it was. So guys, don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed this video.